Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trail Mix, where the nuts might be a little stale, but the company is always fresh.
Clancy Mudge, Raccoon Lawyer. Monday's Law Chat is loaded. Anything you want to say before the wave hits?
Yeah, don't wear shoes you care about. Tsunamis are messy.
Walk us through the docket.
First up, the Supreme Court is deciding whether the president can fire independent regulators when he gets bored.
Then we got war crimes.
We're looking at questions like, can our strongman president blow up anybody in international waters like it's a video game?
And there's always the Epstein case.
Epstein grand jury transcripts, just in case we needed a reminder that nothing good ever comes from opening sealed boxes.
Deportations.
ICE is under scrutiny after the immigrant-shooting case. If ICE had a PR department, they'd probably be hiding under a desk right now.
Birthright-citizenship.
Because when Mondays get boring, why not revisit the 14th Amendment?
Redistricting.
Democracy's looking like one of those balloon animals you twist until it squeaks.
Anything else viewers should know about?
Charge your phone. Stop assuming the Constitution is a force field. And for the love of all things trash-related, don't ask me if any of this is normal. I'm a raccoon. My baseline is chaos in a parking lot at 3 a.m.
Where should people join us?
Trailmix.cc/chat. If the country's going to throw a legal tantrum, you might as well watch it with friends.
Thank you, Clancy Mudge, our Raccoon Lawyer. I'm Craig Crawford, retired journalist working for nothing but the truth and Social Security checks, and we're doing Law Chat. Well, there's so much going on in the legal world. It is incredibly difficult to keep up with, but right now we're going to the Supreme Court. We're going to go live to the Supreme Court where they're arguing a case on the president's power to fire everybody if he wants. Basically, let the president take over all the independent agencies, FTC, whatever. I mean, basically create a dictator, if you ask me. But maybe that's what the country wants. Who knows? But that's what Trump's trying to do, and that's what they're arguing about right now in the Supreme Court. We'll get into more of the details later, but let's listen to a little bit of the oral argument here.
So I'm not sure if that's part of the dynamic.
Let me ask you a question about stare
the
decisis.
Solicitor
How
General
should we think about reliance interests when it
defending
comes to reliance
Trump's
interests in
takeover of the independent agencies, and here you have
about had we
Justice,
ever overruled a case
Amy
that
Coney
was dissolved, and
Barrett, who's a swing vote. How she goes in this case
could
Erie
kind of came out of
determine
nowhere
the outcome.
and
So we want to
switched,
listen to what she's saying.
and here I would say there's been an eroding of Humphrey's executor over the years. But I think what Justice Sotomayor was really
Humphrey's
trying to get
executor
is
the
not
case
was
they're
there
arguing
as
about.
an
It was a
age gap,
1930s
but this kind of
case
decision,
that
and I'm not
said the
asking whether
president
there's
could
been
not
another
fire
analogous decision,
independent
but I think
agencies
when we
when
think
FDR
about stare
wanted to do
decisis
that.
interests,
That's
this
been
kind
the
of
law ever
structural
since.
interest, which is
And
really the
Trump's trying
interest
to
that's been
overturn that
identified
law now and
on
say
the
the
reliance
president
side.
can
you think of a
fire
case that talks about how the
independent
reliance
agency
factor of stare
heads or
decisis
members
plays in here?
anytime he
I think
wants?
Justice Gorsuch's opinion for the plurality in Ramos addresses this when he talks about how you're weighing, here you're weighing an injury to the constitutional structure. That's not a valid reliance interest. The relevant reliance interest is the reliance of the American people in separation of powers and defending our liberties. If you look at actually like human reliance interests, like, entering into marriage, starting a small business, and so forth, you don't see a lot of people making, decisions in reliance on the fact that there are, multi-member agency commissions have removal restrictions. The only actor here who's arguably relying is Congress, and Congress's act of reliance is itself the violation of the separation of powers. And where that's the case, this supposed congressional reliance interest should be given little or no weight in our view. And then, I think I'll say that.
Justice Jackson?
So I guess I really don't understand why the agencies aren't in Congress. Congress established them.
Amy Coney Barrett is
Congress funds
digging
them
into
and can
Trump's
stop.
Solicitor General right now,
to
trying
the
to see if we get any hints on where she goes on this case.
That there's some sort of
I was listening to
that is out of control and has no control. I guess I don't understand that argument.
We would
Let
say
me
the
get our
constitutional
volume
actor
down
on the
here.
hypothetical.
Oh, they just
controlling
switched to
agencies is
Jackson.
Congress, and
What
that
were
is the
you saying there,
separation of
Luke?
powers.
Well, I understand. I'm just talking
I
about.
was listening in, but I only
Part of
caught
your
the
argument
parts where
seemed to
Kagan
revolve
and
around this
Sotomayor were
notion
beating
that
up
there's
on him
some
pretty
kind
good.
of
Yeah.
thing happening with the
But
independent
it sounds like
agency.
Yeah.
That
Barrett,
the
I
reason
mean,
why
based
the
on your
president needs to
questions,
control it is because
it's
they
like,
don't answer to
I think
anybody. And what
it
I guess
sounds
I
like
don't understand
the
is why
majority
they don't answer to Congress,
wants
which
to
establishes the law that they
go
are bound
in
to
Trump's
follow,
direction, but
and
they're concerned about the,
determines
about the
that
implications on
independence
some of the
exists.
other
Part
agencies
of
like the
these
Fed and
agencies, all of those
like
things
Article
in
1 courts
theory
and
would
so
be
forth, which is a
methods
pretty
and
legitimate
Yeah.
mechanisms
concern
of
because,
control.
talk about the slippery slope.
The Constitution requires
Yeah.
clear lines.
Yeah.
That's, I think it was Kagan or Sotomayor, one of the two, kept asking Sauer, well, what about the Article 1 courts? What about the Fed? And he kept saying, well, we're not asking you to do anything with them. And her response was, yeah, I know you're not asking me that yet, but if you rule this way, what are the implications of those agencies? And he just wouldn't give a legitimate answer.
Hey, we got a couple other friends. Jamie's on here, and Carolyn just popped in. Hey, Carolyn and Jamie.
Hello.
We got the Supreme Court on the background. Lou's here. Right now, we're looking at this since it's live in the court at the moment. This case on whether the president can just become a dictator and fire everybody. That's how I frame the case. Anybody want to frame it their own way?
Well, it sounded to me like they're trying to split the difference, that within the executive branch, he has total authority. For the other branches, he needs congressional assistance.
Sotomayor earlier was on here, and I recorded. I mean, she really summed up her point, her side of the case here with this stuff right here.
I think we're
neither the king nor parliament nor prime ministers, England at the time of the founding, ever had a unqualified removal power. You're asking us to say that at a time, the founding, when the Constitution doesn't speak about this at all, where there was robust debate over this issue among legal scholars at the time, that we ourselves has said repeatedly in Humphreys and other cases, Wiener, even in Myers, that that those cases you mentioned did not establish this absolute power of the president. You're asking us to destroy the structure of government and to take away from Congress its ability to protect its idea that the government is better structured with some agencies that are independent.
That's a pretty stark way to put it. They're trying to destroy the structure of government.
Well, and I love the fact, since the conservatives are, originalists, I love the fact that she is going back to pre-colonial times and the English common law to say that that's not something we've done in the past. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'm no expert in that field. I thought that was smart of her to reach back for whatever good it does.
Well, the GOP is not well known for consistency in their arguments.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, I think their biggest challenge, the majority's biggest challenge, is to get over or to deal with the consequences on other agencies if they go with the company that they find. Because the next step is really going to be the Fed. I mean, who had said that he has the authority to fire the Fed chair and other members of the Fed? And if the Supreme Court goes the way on this, it's just a matter of time. You're on mute, Craig. Can't hear you. Can the rest of you guys hear me?
I can hear you, can't hear Craig.
I think he wants us to keep talking. What's going on with him? I've known Craig a long, long time. He's never been a wizard on technology. Not that I'm a wizard on it either.
Looks like he's working on it.
Yeah. Have you been listening in on the oral argument at all, Carolyn?
No, I have not. No. Now I was working on something else earlier, and so I didn't.
Yeah, this is a ruling that could have some pretty significant implications, and it really changes, as the Sotomayor said, the structure of government that we have had in place really since the founding. I think we lost them all together, it looks like.
Yeah, the sound is better now. I was having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Lou, and now it's better. So it might have been something on Craig's end that was causing that interference.
Yeah, it sounded a little bit like there was a washing machine going.
Exactly. Yeah. or you were sitting in front of a fan.
Carolyn, you're a former assistant USA, right?
Yes.
What do you think of all this business going on with Comey and Letitia James and Alina Habab, or whatever her name is? And
I think that Kim Curry got it exactly right in her decision on Halligan, and and there are other judges who have said the same thing. I absolutely agree with that, and I think it's so apparent that it's hard to understand why the Department of Justice thought they could get away with it. I mean, it's as though no one there is speaking up and saying that you can't do this. And maybe they are, and they just nobody listens.
yeah, I've never. My practice is on the civil side, but I get the sense that the line prosecutors and the career prosecutors are probably complaining about it, but it's this new leadership that's just not allowing it to happen. I mean, I was stunned that they went a second time before the grand jury to try to get an indictment on Letitia James, and the grand jury refused to give the indictment. That's pretty unheard of, isn't it? I mean, I always thought that.
Now there's more interference, Lou. Can you repeat that last part?
Okay.
Greg, can you hear us now? Because we're getting a lot of background noise here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll all have to learn lip reading.
Technical difficulty.
Or sign language.
That's right. Well, we lost him again. I think he's trying to.
Yeah, but the interference is gone. So.
Yeah. Well, what I was asking you when before Craig jumped on is, there was a report, I guess, last week that they brought Letitia James, or they went to a grand jury to get a second indictment on Letitia James, and the grand jury refused to indict, which I understand is pretty unheard of, right? I mean, that's pretty rare that a grand jury turns down a prosecutor on an indictment.
In my whole 30 years, I think it happened one time. And it was, in all honesty, it was a situation where I was not surprised. We were not surprised by it, but felt that because of the circumstances, we should present it to the grand jury, and they declined to indict, and that was okay. And I don't recall now what the specific circumstances were, but it merited a review by the grand jury.
Well, I mean, the fact
Am I back yet?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Now you're here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The system changed microphones on me without asking me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there was
But
a
y'all
lot
are
of-
having a good discussion, so don't let me get in the way.
Well, we were talking about the grand jury refusing to indict Letitia James
Yeah.
for a second time, which is pretty unheard of. You know, the old saying that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich if that's what the prosecutor requests. Didn't seem to be the case here.
and you know, I would also, in defense of at least the Department of Justice, as you know, during my experience, I never saw anybody ask for an indictment of a ham sandwich. So that's an exaggeration. And I think it's more a result of that we took cases to the grand jury that for which we believed there was sufficient evidence to obtain an indictment. And further than that, we only went to the grand jury if we thought there was enough evidence that would be able to get a conviction at trial.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not as though we routinely took in crap. We did not.
Yeah, and I think that makes infinite sense. I mean, you know, the Justice Department, like most, I think, lawyers, are not going to prosecute a case unless they feel they have a reasonable basis in the fact and law for doing it.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. It's a waste
of time and money, sure.
Yeah.
And the Justice Department's departure from those norms is really amazing to me. And you know, the question is how much further are they going to go with this? They don't seem to be backing down. I mean, I don't know with Comey.
No, they get bolder and bolder.
They do, even though they get punched in the face. They you know.
Hey, Jack, we got Jack in here now.
Good morning, Jack.
Hey.
To your all's discussion, I just wanted to put this on the the screen. This study is stunning. To your point about Justice Department defying the courts, I mean, these numbers are amazing. I mean, you know, 64 times the courts have blocked executive actions and DOJ motions in just this year. I mean, this has just been since, you know, almost not quite a year. And then you have 25 nationwide injunctions, federal judges saying, you know, that halting DOJ or executive policies, and dozens of non-compliance citations. And the thing is, they're not just saying, you know, they made mistakes. They're saying, you know, their judges are saying they are in non-compliance with judicial orders, and have said in various ways they distrust the government information. I mean, Carolyn, I mean, you know, you spent a whole career in the Justice Department. I mean, have you ever seen the DOJ just lose its credibility so quickly in the federal courts?
Not that widespread, no. I've seen random occasions, and very random and very rare, where an AUSA or a attorney at Main Justice, who are not called AUSAs, but there was the occasional circumstance when a judge would complain that an AUSA or lawyer had been untruthful or had not complied, but it was rare. It was really rare. And when it did happen, the Department of Justice responded appropriately.
I mean, there are at least 4 cases where judges have said the U.S. attorneys aren't even legally in their jobs. I mean, and they're continuing to work. That's what I don't get is, what are these people? How are they continuing to do their jobs when the courts have said they're illegally in the job?
Well, I think they aren't really doing that much in the office, and that's what I have heard about. You know, a couple of those who are, you know, they're just standing there. They aren't really doing that much. So, I mean, they can stay there and nobody's making any attempt to get rid of them. But if they aren't really making any decisions or taking action on their own, then there's nothing really to complain about. There's no, I think the courts will just say they're illegally appointed, but so what?
Well, I think what Bondi is trying to do is when now that I think there've been at least 2, maybe 4 courts have come back and said, the attorney general cannot appoint an interim for more than 120 days. After that, it's got to be the district court.
Correct.
And so what Bondi did, at least in Alina Habba's case, I don't know how to pronounce her name, is that she appointed her first assistant U.S. attorney. And then she was basically acting as a U.S. attorney. And I think the judge who issued the opinion on the other interim U.S. attorney, I forgot her name, the one who prosecuted, tried to get the indictment on Comey, came back and said, you can't do that. You can't, just say, convert them to a first assistant and then circumvent the requirement of the statute. But as Craig pointed out, it doesn't seem to stop them. They just continue.
As long as they don't make any decisions solely on their own, then there's really not much the courts can do. And that was why Halligan's, why Comey's case was such a problem, because Halligan had gone to the grand jury by herself. No assistant U.S. attorney's name was even on the indictment. So she presented it all by herself and apparently made lots of legal errors in her presentation to the grand jury.
I got a question. Go on this. Let's say where they are not legal in their job and they cause all kinds of problems. What recourse do the people have? Can they take those people to court? Because after all, if they're not supposed to be there, are they liable? Do they lose their immunity to liability?
That's a great question. I mean, and Carolyn will know more about this than I do. I used to do some 1983 civil litigation back in the day, and as a general rule, government employees have sovereign immunity, and especially prosecutors. But there are exceptions to that under 1983 if they violate your civil rights. But you're right. I wonder, Carolyn, if the immunity applies if they were never properly appointed from the beginning, ab initio, like this court did out of this judge from South Carolina. That'd be an interesting case to make, I think.
But who would you sue? Are you talking about liability of the person, the U.S. attorney?
Of the individual, yeah.
Yeah, the idiot that's doing the stuff.
But if that person did not have any role in the decision making on a particular case, then how are you going to identify the harm?
Well, what about Halligan, who was the only person involved in getting the indictments against Comey and James?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I don't know about James. I don't think she was with James, but
you may be right. I think you're right. I think that was a different
but definitely with Comey. She was the only one in the grand jury, and her name.
And if she was never, according to the court, I think the court ruled that her appointment was void from the very beginning. So if that's true, does she enjoy sovereign immunity? I don't know.
Well, can you impeach a U.S. attorney?
I would guess so, because
it's a good question.
I don't know.
Judges, of course.
Yeah, is it limited to they're presidentially appointed?
According to Google AI, yes, a U.S. attorney can be impeached by the House of Representatives and tried by the Senate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You beat me to it. I was going to Chat GPT. You went to Google first.
Yeah, I tell you, they're It's terrible how we rely on this stuff. I just hope it's accurate, you know. But
I know, you know, that's but of course politically, I mean, it's so important for Democrats to win the midterms, because then things like this question are plausible, impeaching these U.S. attorneys. You know, I mean, it all connects. You know, well, I mean, right now that's just it's a moot discussion. You know, whether the House can impeach these U.S. attorneys, because that ain't going to happen.
My thought was on it is that these people, you know, Trump's not always going to be in power. And they're not going to have the protection of the presidency always. And so somehow some of these people need to pay a little bit for their stupidity.
Yeah, you know, the sad part of a lot that, you know, I mean, Trump is breaking so many barriers, and it's a slippery slope, because you're right. The Trump won't be around forever, but you know, the next guy may be J.D. Vance, or it could be even a Democrat, and who decides to continue going down the same slope, and the people who suffer, I think, is a general population.
Well, I mean, that gets to my confusion about why conservatives are so hell bent to dramatically increase presidential power, because, you know, like you say, I mean, AOC could become president and have all these powers. I mean, is that what conservatives want? I mean, this case right now in the Supreme Court, it comes from FDR trying to exert the power to fire independent heads of independent agencies. And in those days, the court said he couldn't do it. Well, now it's just wild. I mean, now the Republicans are in the court saying FDR should have had that power after all. We want it. I don't get they're not thinking long term here.
It just defies reason. They're not thinking long term at all. They're not even thinking beyond the midterms, I don't think. And it's just like you know, Trump's push to get rid of the filibuster. Now, look, I'm not a big fan of the filibuster, but I am sure thankful that we have it now. While Trump,
yeah.
Sure, you know, the Republicans are thankful that they had it when there's a Democrat in office.
Remember all the Democrats who were mad at Schumer for not getting rid of the filibuster in order to pass Biden's laws. Well, now we're enjoying it.
And they're supposed to be the party that is, you know, conservative and supposed to be restrictive of federal power. And here they are advocating giving the president just an enormous amount of authority, unchecked authority. I mean, my goodness, if this court, and it looks like it's going to, is going to agree that we have a unitary executive, it's, you know, hang on to your horses, because you're not just talking about the FTC, you're talking about the NLRB, you're talking about the Fed, you're talking about Article I courts. The impact could be enormous.
So you think this case will go Trump's direction? This case today that they're hearing?
It seems to be the case. I mean, they've been eroding Humphrey now for the last, 10 years.
And Humphrey's the case that said FDR could not fire independent agency heads.
Well, you know, Alito and Thomas, and probably, although Gorsuch was asking some questions earlier in the part that I was listening to, that was, suggesting that he might not go in that direction. I'll tell you what, if they don't go in that direction, it'll be because they recognize that this isn't just about the FTC, that this has much, much broader implications. But who knows? I mean, if I were to put money on this, I think that it's going to be 5-4 or 6-3.
Well, I grabbed 60 seconds here of the FCC commissioner that is involved in this case, and I thought she made some pretty solid.
So you're trying to vindicate the law that Congress passed that has been in place for over a century to protect accountability and transparency at the FTC, to make sure that commissioners and the work of the commission is done without fear or favor. And more specifically, that we can take on the biggest companies in America without fear of getting fired for failure to do a favor to the president's friends or donors or corporate allies.
And look, Congress designed these agencies like the FTC, like the Fed, like the SEC, the whole panoply of independent agencies to have bipartisan voices so that there could be accountability and transparency. And you could, the public could see the other side of decisions. I care, a lot about my agency, a lot about my job, but much more about the principle that protects independence, accountability, transparency, and checks and balances in government, which I think we need now more than ever.
It'd help if we taught checks and balances in school anymore. I don't think we do. Nobody knows what we're talking about.
Well, you heard there was breaking news this morning. You heard about the proposed deal where Netflix is going to acquire or wanted to acquire.
And did you see the very latest? Jared Kushner's part of it.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
part. I didn't hear that.
Jared Kushner is part of this hostile takeover of CNN. It's the way I would put it more directly.
And it's not just Jared Kushner; it's the Ellison family, which is closely aligned with the Trump administration, and they of conservative media outlets.
Well, they're the ones that fired Colbert to please Trump.
That's exactly right. And Trump, at the Kennedy Center thing or somewhere announced that he was going to be weighing in on this Netflix merger. But this is a great example of how an independent agency like the FTC should be allowed to evaluate these things and implement the law without political interference. And and that may be taken away. I didn't realize Kushner was part of that group. You can't make this stuff up.
I really can't.
If there's money involved, they're there.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, not just money, also controlling the media.
Here was this right there. That's the story that just broke like within the past hour that Jared Kushner is part of Paramount's hostile bid. This is Axios talking. Why it matters. While Kushner won't have a board seat or voting rights, it means Netflix will have to compete for regulatory approval with the president's own family.
Right. Yeah. And while we're at it, let's give the president plenary authority to fire the entire FTC if that's what he wants without cause. You really can't make this stuff up.
Hey, Carolyn, I wanted to get into that pipe bomber case. Were you up for that whole pardon issue on that one? Because I'm curious if this is a feasible theory at all.
I think he can certainly argue that he is entitled to a pardon based on the former language, but I don't see that as a very good argument. He's not a person. Now, those people who actually received pardons were at some point named. They had to be named as a person who qualified for that pardon. The president can certainly pardon the pipe bomber if he wants to, but I don't think that the pipe bomber is entitled to a pardon just because other people might have gotten a pardon.
Well, it's just that, here's the language of Trump's pardon of the January 6th defendants. A full and complete unconditional pardon to all other individuals.
It does not say other. It says to all individuals.
Oh, now this what I put on the screen here is from the White House website.
If you're looking at the second paragraph, it says.
I was looking at the first one. And then down at the bottom, and then that's where it gets down to the rubber meets the road on how the Attorney General is supposed to apply his pardon. Is that what you're talking about?
But it says to events that occurred at or near the Capitol on January 6th, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that necessarily includes somebody who put a bomb somewhere. I just don't see that as a decent argument on the part of the pipe bomber.
Well, where it ends up connecting, I guess, is that the defendant or the suspect, I guess we we call him, had actually said that he doesn't believe that Biden was elected in 2020, that it was a rigged election. And of course, that's what the January 6th people were writing. So it's enough of the thread to file a motion under the anybody can sue rule, I guess.
Yeah, but saying what? I should be pardoned? Yeah, that's the discretion of the president. Now, Trump may say, okay, I'll pardon you. But I don't think that the pipe bomber is necessarily entitled to a pardon just because other people got one. Those other people didn't have pipe bombs. There is a distinction in their crimes.
Yeah,
but now
you may be.
Now, Lou, I bet you could write this motion with your feet.
I was going to say, you're probably right. I mean, a discerning judge would probably, at minimum, conclude that pardon language was ambiguous. But the paragraph that Craig referred to says all other individuals. It was an arising from type of language. You can bet donuts to dollars there's going to be a motion, and it'll probably be denied by the federal district judge. But then who knows what the Court of Appeals will do. But you know what I find the most the legal aspect of it is fascinating, but the political argument or angle of it, I think, is even more interesting, because that both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, before they were appointed to be part of the FBI, said that this pipe bomb thing was an inside job, and it was promoted by the FBI, and that it was the FBI that was trying to suppress all of this. Now that they're in the FBI, they're singing a different tune. In fact, I think
they claimed that January 6th, the storming of the Capitol itself, was organized by the FBI.
It was. Well, Bongino was on Hannity last week, and Hannity asked him about that, surprisingly, because he usually only, tosses them softballs. And Bongino said, well, I was getting paid back then to give an opinion. Now that I'm in the FBI, I've got to look at the facts. It works to that effect. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was worse than that.
So I was lying because I was getting paid.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's what he's saying.
We'll find it.
Well, now, the thing about filing a motion, though, Carol, I think Carol's right. It's a stretch, but it's enough of an argument to file a motion. But the thing about filing a motion is then they could get into some discovery, couldn't they? And tease out some good stuff in depositions and that sort of thing about what was going on, about what did this mean? Who wrote this pardon language? What does it mean? And that could be very embarrassing to the administration.
Yeah, I don't think it's the place of the courts to be involved in whether someone gets a pardon. And I just don't see it as an entitlement. It is not an entitlement, and that language does not entitle him to a pardon. It is still up to the discretion of the president.
Yeah, you may be right. Here's the quote verbatim from Bongino when he was on Hannity. When Hannity asked him, hey, what gives? You're flipping here. He says, quote, I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director, and we base investigations on facts.
So he's admitting that he didn't care about facts before.
That's right. Must have been paid more when he was a commentator, I guess.
I mean, all these characters, when they end up in court, whether it's Tucker Carlson or Hannity, and going back to the election rigging case, the lawsuit, that the defamation case against Fox, they all had to admit in court, in depositions, that they were basically just lying for profit. It was all entertainment. That became their actual defense in that Fox case. Is, well, we didn't mean all this stuff. We were just entertaining our viewers. When they get to court, they admit they were lying.
And unfortunately, I think that's become the whole modern news trend, isn't it? Just entertainment.
Clicks. All about the
It's
clicks.
Sadly, a lot of it is that way. I think.
Now, before we wrap up, we've also got our. All right, who's a citizen case? I can't believe the Supreme Court is actually entertaining this one, but they are. They took up this birthright citizenship case. I mean, what do we think they're planning for this?
Who knows?
I mean, there's the language. Now, I actually researched to try to understand what the argument is that people born here aren't. So what the argument that the Supreme Court is entertaining, that the lower courts shot down, is that if you were born to parents who came here illegally, somehow this phrase here, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, gives Trump the authority to deport you. Now, I mean, I have no idea how the Supreme Court could possibly buy that argument, but they've surprised us a couple times so far.
I'm hoping that there was already an oral argument on the issue of the national injunctions that were issued as a result of this executive order. And I listened to part of that oral argument. I got the sense that most justices are not buying this theory by the Trump administration that if you were here illegally, then and had kids, then your kids were not citizens. So that gives me a little bit of hope. But I agree with you, Craig. I mean, even if you're here illegally, you're still subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So I mean, I don't know what that argument is.
I mean, I have no idea why the founders tossed that phrase in there. I haven't done the research on the Constitutional Convention debate, but or that was actually in the 14th Amendment, wasn't it?
14th Amendment.
But anyhow, I don't know what the legislative history of what that phrase means, but they asked for trouble putting it in there.
Well, and look, for example, what he did with Venezuelans. Venezuelans were allowed in under temporary parole status. So they entered legally, and hundreds of thousands of them, based on an executive order that I think was signed by Biden. And he had the complete authority to do that. Biden or Trump then revokes that authority, so that those hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who entered legally are all of a sudden here illegally. So if they have a child born in the United States, I mean, while before Trump declared them illegal, does that mean the child is a citizen? Or does it mean that when Trump revoked that executive order and caused the parents are now here illegally, that those children who were born here are not citizens? I mean, it's crazy. The point is that the president has significant authority over immigration, and they can do things like, give you temporary parole status and take it away. They can make you legal. They can make you illegal.
Well, if they do it, it's that phrase, that one little phrase, and if they change the meaning of that, that changes the meaning of a lot of different things, not just immigration. I mean, I'm trying to, anybody living in the United States who is not a citizen suddenly doesn't have any rights.
That's Stephen Miller's plan. Yeah.
Under the Constitution, if you change that phrase.
But even non-citizens are protected. A non-citizen who is in the United States, even if that person is here illegally, is still entitled to the protections under the U.S. Constitution. So our rights, now, there are certain things that if you're here illegally, you're not entitled to access. For example, you can't get Social Security, you can't get health benefits, and what have you. But you're still protected by the Constitution. You're still entitled to due process. You're still entitled to a hearing and so forth. So just because you're not a citizen, even if you're in here illegally, you're still entitled to protection by the U.S. Constitution. But that's not what Stephen Miller wants. He wants to say, if you're here illegally, then you got no rights.
And part of the problem here, Lou, is like this case here. They deport these people before the courts can stop them. And this Babson College case, when we were up in Boston for Thanksgiving, this case was hot to trot, and I started following it. And here's what happened with this. I think she's 19 now. This Babson College student. She went to the Logan Airport to fly to, I don't know where, to see her parents.
Honduras, I think.
Well, that's where she ends up. But
I think her family was in Texas.
Yeah. And I showed up, grabbed her, threw her in a detention facility that they put in an office building that's not a facility for this sort of thing at all. And for a few hours. And then her family quickly got a lawyer and was headed to court, and they were filing a motion. And ultimately, the judge ordered that they could not send her out of state or deport her. But by the time that order was done, they had already sent her to Texas. And before anything else could happen.
They didn't send her to Texas, did they? Did they send her to
Texas? Yeah. First to Texas.
Okay.
First, yeah. Then they took her to Texas. And then within hours, she didn't overnight in the detention facility in Massachusetts. I don't know if she even did in Texas, but then they quickly departed her to Honduras, and then the court's order. Now they're in court just last week and making the argument to the court, who wants to know what the hell happened here. I ordered you not to do these things. And they tell the federal judge, well, you don't have jurisdiction because she was out of the country by the time you issued the order. That's their argument right now to the court.
What they tried before with that other guy, right?
Yeah.
That's the same argument they made on that.
It's a pattern. It's a pattern. So, I mean, all these great legal arguments we could construct for these people are just, moot, because they're getting rid of them before the courts can do anything. It'll be interesting to see now how the case plays out. But
the interesting thing on it is, for them to do it that fast, she either had to sign off on it and agree to it, or they had to not give her her basic rights.
Well, her attorney for a long period of time there, when her attorney was trying to file motions there, they wouldn't even tell him where she was.
Yeah.
He not only couldn't talk to her, they wouldn't even tell him where she was.
Now that goes right back to, okay, if her civil, here's the thing, they're doing all this, and we were talking about this a while ago. I was asked this question a while ago, is if they're violating her civil rights, which they are, it appears, are the people making the decision liable?
Sadly, probably not.
Yeah,
probably not.
What Jack's argued for here, guys, is piercing. What is it? The sovereign immunity? Is that what we're talking about here? The sovereign immunity.
How much? Because they used to tell us when I was working with the boys in the boys' home that we weren't totally immune. If we did, did stuff that wasn't right, that we could be liable.
But that was a private.
No,
that
was
government,
county court.
Oh, it was county court. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That was the circuit court.
Huh. There's a way to overcome sovereign immunity if you can show the violation of a constitutional right, especially if it was done in bad faith. But that's a huge bar. And you're talking about years of civil litigation to do that. And, these people don't have the resources to do that. So there's no telling. But, this Babson student, you're absolutely right. The judge literally ordered the government not to deport her, and they did it anyway. It's unbelievable.
They literally have no respect for the rule of law. They just don't.
And then, so typically a judge's recourse in a situation like that would be to find the offender in contempt of court and either fine them or take some other sanction.
Yeah.
But who does the judge sanction here? I mean,
well, her very last move in that Babson case was when the Justice Department came in and argued that she had no jurisdiction because they'd already gotten rid of the girl. She said, "Well, I need to see your records on when she was moved. I need proof that what you're saying is true, that she was out of the country or out of state by the time I issued the order." And they wouldn't give it to her. And so now she's had to issue an order to force them to give her that evidence, which suggests that they may not have proof that she was actually gone.
I think the closest to this that we have seen, in relatively recent history was during the civil rights movement in the South, when some judges, state court judges, not federal judges, because federal judges were actually pretty good about it, but state court judges would simply defy, would make rulings that were completely contrary to the law. But that was the judges who were doing that. Then, in the federal court, federal judges who were issuing orders to local, mayors, governors, and what have you, they also refused to enact or to abide by some of those orders. But man.
Now, Carolyn, did you ever have any interaction with Judge this Mark Wolf, who recently resigned in protest? I just wanted to, he was a Reagan appointee. Oh, wait a second. He was a U.S. District Judge in Massachusetts, not D.C.
Okay.
Anyway, just a couple of weeks ago, he was appointed by Reagan, so he was toward the end of his judicial career, obviously. But he just resigned in order so that he could go public, and he wrote an editorial and all that. And I think he has been profound and really speaks for what a lot of the judges who are still in office are trying to say. I pulled his clip. It's just a minute.
It's vitally important that the American people understand the fundamental role of the courts. You go back to the Declaration of Independence. All power is in the people. Some of it is given to elected officials. And one important role of the courts is to hold those officials to the limits of their delegated power. But courts can't enforce their own orders. We don't have armies to do that. We rely on the American people insisting on elected officials like Richard Nixon did, obeying court orders, even if they're adverse to their interests. And I'm very concerned that with all the clamor that judges are corrupt and ought to be impeached, that the American people won't support the courts the way is essential to keep a democracy alive. Sitting judges, as I was until a week ago, can't speak up for themselves. Their message in their decisions in their courtrooms gets overwhelmed by the bully pulpit that the president has, also using social media, which you won't find judges on. So this concerns me because, as I said, if the American people are not willing to support federal judges and insist on the obedience to court orders, then the judiciary cannot play its essential role in a democracy of holding elected officials, including the president, to the limits of the power given to them by the people, and our democracy will be doomed.
Doomed.
It's scary. I mean, democracy is very much voluntary. And he's absolutely right. The judiciary doesn't have an army. They can't, other than, people who are subject to their rulings voluntarily complying with those orders, they really don't have a lot of recourse if the government just says, no, we're not going to do it. They can't send the U.S. Marshals to go arrest Trump for contempt of court.
The Marshals answer to the Attorney General.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I don't sense the outrage of the general public about these things anything close to what we're hearing from people like actual judges. I mean, like that judge just now, for a federal judge, would you say, Carolyn, he was having a hissy fit? I mean, judges don't talk like that.
Very well reasoned and balanced. position.
Yeah.
People should listen.
And then earlier we heard, I played Justice Sotomayor in this morning's oral argument, and she didn't mean this as hyperbole. She told the Solicitor General, Trump's lawyer, she told him in this case on trying to assert the power to fire federal independent agency heads. She said, "You're trying to destroy," her words, "destroy the structure of government." I mean, that's a U.S. Supreme Court justice saying that in an oral argument to an to the executive branch. To me, that's hugely dramatic.
Yeah, it really is. Well, folks, I'm going to have to bug out. I've got a meeting I've got to run to.
Yeah, me too.
Always been a pleasure.
Yeah, we're at the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
And I was going to leave you with you haven't had any snow in North Carolina, have you, Carolyn?
Oh, no.
And we haven't, and you haven't had any in Florida.
No, we're having a cold spell right now. It's down to 58 degrees, so we got heavy sweaters.
and
Jack,
have you had any snow, Jack?
My wife and I used to go to Florida, and we'd bring the cold weather with us.
Have you had any snow yet?
I've had just a little bit.
Anyway, I've got 10 seconds of our first snow for us to wind up on, and we've had us a full hour. That was fun. I was glad I got my microphone going. I appreciate that you all could continue talking without me when I lost my microphone. It just goes to prove I am not necessary. All right, here we go.
Stay warm. Oh,
wow. It looks like a postcard.
Yeah, just driving around Georgetown, filming from the car.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very pretty. Yeah. Stay warm, Craig.
All right.
Take care. I enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm Lady Mau Mau, Craig's built-in emergency brake. If this wasn't enough for you, sign up for the newsletter. It's free, it's thoughtful, and it occasionally makes sense.